Thursday. I want to welcome Paul, who's joining us from London. Paul, you want to say hi?
Hi, guys.
Excellent. So today's a kind of cool day. Today's the first of a new weekly series that we're going to be starting for Mobile Web Thursdays, where we're going to be coming to you with all kinds of really cool stuff about mobile web development. Today we're going to focus on the launch of Chrome for Android, the latest build that shipped yesterday. Paul, do you want to tell us a little bit about sort of what's special about this new build?
What's special?
Yeah.
Everything. No, this is actually a really exciting build, right? Because this is like the first time where we're getting close to parity with the desktop, right?
Yep.
We've always wanted web developers to have like a first-class experience when developing for the web.
Yep.
Across all factory devices, and obviously in the past we've led with desktop. And then we launched, I think, 16 and then upgraded to 18 on Android. And now we're at 25, only a week behind the actual desktop launch in version 25 of Chrome. So for me, that's like the most exciting thing, because developers are at least starting to get a consistent platform to target across all form factors.
Yeah, I think that's sort of the neatest thing for me as well. The fact that we are now on M25 or like only a week behind the desktop build is pretty awesome. So if you haven't updated your Chrome for Android on your Android device, you should go do that. If you just go into the Play Store if you haven't seen the update pop up and check for any available updates so that you can get that. I
actually think it's you need to use a permission change as well for the audio stuff, which we're going to talk about later. So if you see it sitting there, press update and go ahead.
Yeah, I think that we'll talk about that in a bit, but that's a really cool new feature that I'm really excited about. So why don't we dive in and take a look at some of the new things that are available in Chrome for Android. So there's a couple of ones that are kind of cool that we are, they're a little bit harder to show, but some of those are like improved scrolling performance. So I'm going to bring up a page here, and I'm just going to create a new tab and do a quick search for how browsers work.
It's a big doc, right?
And that's a huge document, right? So that's the one on HTML5 Rocks. So if I pull this guy up and let it load, finish loading. In the past, if you started scrolling on here, what you'd find would be that you'd get big blank spots showing up. You'd get pieces where like content just didn't render. But now notice that as I'm scrolling, we're getting very few of those blank spots. And of course, as we go through a demo. But every once in a while, we get these areas where we get sort of like blurred out text. What's happening is the browser's rendering low quality images effectively so that it can show and scroll quickly so that we can see what's going on, so that we get a much better experience and we get a much smoother scrolling experience going on.
Yeah, so everyone knows this is like basically a threaded compositor now. So in the past, essentially paints and everything used to block the if you did a paint and then a render, it would block the actual browser for that time. And now it doesn't. It's on a completely separate thread. Internally, we've called it impulside threading, or impulside painting, sorry. It's like a completely obtuse name, but essentially what it does, it's exactly what Pete just described, where you'll do a scroll and we've got like low resolution versions of the page. It's all rendered out anyway. We've got low resolution versions of the page, which we can quickly show to the user, and then when the scrolling stops, we swap that out and we give it back to the user in full high res. And we think this is a better way of doing it, because that's one of the worst things that we have at the moment on the mobile web, is if you scroll, you lose track of everything. We like the app would try to paint, but the user wouldn't see anything because we couldn't keep up.
Yep.
And this is a big improvement for the way that you develop apps, at least, or the way that your users see your sites and apps.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool one, and it really is going to, I think, increase the feeling that users have of a responsive browser and a responsive website. So that's one. One of the next ones is really sort of improved performance in pinch to zoom sites. So in sites where you're going to go to them and you're going to go and do pinch to zoom, the performance there is significantly improved. Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
show this off, but I think it's basically a benefit of having the threaded compositor now. The interesting thing, and we found this out a couple of weeks ago, is that we always have this like 300 millisecond delay on clicks.
Yep.
You click a link or click anything. Obviously, it needs to work out whether you're going to try and do another type of gesture, and that whole subsystem's been starting to be improved. But the interesting thing is, if you have your viewport set, which we might talk about viewport today, but we probably have a whole dedicated session for viewports in the future because it's quite a complex subject. If you have your viewport set to device width, then we don't even do that 300 millisecond delay because we know that you're not going to do another type of gesture,
Right.
because it's impossible to do basically. So that's like the whole subset of like performance improvements that have been coming along with the viewport and the pinch to zoom stuff and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one's pretty slick, and that one's a nice user improvement as well.
Yeah. In theory, it means that you don't need to use fast click, but obviously every other browser out there is using fast click or has this other problem as well.
Yep.
So we'll probably see that type of thing kind of live for a little while, but the idea is that we want to give you the ability just to not have to use that library.
Right, and well, one of the things that we were talking about a couple weeks ago while we were in London for Edge was talking with the developers of FastClick and talking about ways that we could potentially detect Chrome for Android with the proper things set, and if everything is set properly, not even load FastClick so that it doesn't even have to load. There's less JavaScript running on your page is more responsive because of that, and your clicks happen pretty much instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty slick one. There's also a whole bunch of work that we did around making sure that we had the latest JavaScript engine. So, effectively, the previous version of Chrome was Chrome 18. We've moved 7 versions of Chrome since then, and had 7 releases since that initial time. So we now have a much faster JavaScript engine with all of the latest V8 stuff in there. Again, that one's a little hard to demo as well, so don't really have a lot to show there, but I think we have something cool for the...
Yeah, I mean, people can just go to the SunSpider stuff if they want.
Yeah, that's a good point.
We've been talking with Paul Lewis and a couple of other guys as well internally that, the JavaScript performance, okay, it's a big factor in how your application responds to the users. But bigger areas of improvement that you could potentially have as a developer when you're optimizing your site are actually around rendering, painting, and actually not forcing layouts, because obviously like the browsers on mobile phones are like an order of magnitude slower than desktop machines.
Yep.
So we have a bigger benefit like in reducing the number of reflows and recalcs and all those type of things than necessarily the JavaScript stuff itself. But like that being said, we are keeping parity, and that's the aim, is to keep parity with the desktop now.
Yeah.
For all features. So I think that's a really powerful thing.
Cool. Well, so now we've got another whole set of features where we've got some really cool demos. If you want to follow along or try any of these demos out, we can put the link on the screen for the demos. But you can see the link is there, and you can try some of these yourself. So the first one I want to have a quick peek at is the audio demo. And one of the big changes there is now audio will play even if Chrome's in the background. And Paul had mentioned that you need a background, you need a user permission to update Chrome for Android. And this is why. So if I were to go and say, hey, I want to start playing this podcast, which we'll go and hit play here, sure enough, okay, you can hear it in the background. Now if I leave Chrome and go somewhere else within my phone and start doing other things, the podcast keeps going. So if I'm using something like Google Music to play music, if I'm listening to podcasts or doing anything else, all of that music or all of that audio still keeps playing, even with Chrome not as the primary piece. So I can go and check out some news, see what's going on there. It's a pretty slick and kind of cool little feature. Paul, do you have anything you want to add to this one?
No, this is, I think we're playing HMPod as well, I think.
Yeah.
So this is actually a feature that Mike Marmoff wanted quite a long time ago inside the browser, and he's had a bug open for it for quite a while. And we finally been able to actually fix it because of all the kind of the changes and everything. So I'm hoping Mike's happy. This is a big shout out to him as well, because it's actually a big change, right? I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of things that you might have to, we don't have to worry too much about like web audio at the moment, but there might be situations where you would want to know that the user's background of your page, so you need to still be respectful of the user if you're playing audio, and you might have to deal with that still. Actually, you probably should deal with that, just to be respectful. But then you've got this whole class of applications like podcast players, and people watch the news on, say, BBC News and want to go off and do other things, and we can let that happen.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing to know is, in theory, what should happen is if another action interrupts this. So whether like a user gets a phone call, say a user, a person, they get the phone call while this is happening, the music stops playing, basically, and the audio stops playing.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it resumes. So it's just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
But that's cool. I mean, that's way more further than we've been in the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
cool. So the next one is CSS calc, and I'll bring this one up. And Paul, do you want to talk a little bit about this one? So I've opened the page, and we've got this guy showing right now.
I'm hoping it's the correct version, because I found a bug just before we started.
It's version 2.
If we split halfway through, then we should be good. But basically what CSS calc is this ability to perform basic calculations inside CSS. So for instance, you could say, well, my width is normally 50%, right? But I want it to be an extra 10 pixels.
Yep.
Well, you could never really do that in CSS at the time. You couldn't combine calculations together. Well,
Right.
you can now, and it's been in Chrome M25 for a while. I believe in M26, at least at the moment, it's unprefixed. But right now on the Android browser, which was the bug I found earlier on, it's prefixed with -WebKit -calc. The rest of the functionality is exactly the same. But it lets you do those little things like, I want to add 30 pixels to 2 EMs, I want to do 50% minus, minus 5%, right? You can even do those types of things, keep the units the same.
Yep.
It just gives you a lot more flexibility when you're designing your layouts, and it's actually there now inside everyone's latest stable Chrome.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good.
Yeah. The coolest thing to me about this is being able to go and use different values or different formats. Like, it's just always been one of those things where you're like, oh crap, I did it in this, and now I need to do, and now you can do this much more easily. So bringing Chrome for Android really closer to parity with desktop is a really big theme of this launch. One of the next ones is support for Shadow DOM. So I'll bring up this demo here, and I think this one's kind of cool, and we'll take a look at the source for this in a couple minutes. But Paul, do you want to just sort of explain again what's going on this one?
Yeah, so I find it awkward to explain the Shadow DOM sometimes, but in this demo, at least anyway, it's a picture of a badge that says my name is Bob. And when you look at the HTML, you'll probably see the fact that you'll just see this element, which is just the basic element. You don't there's basically a div inside there which says Bob. It doesn't say anything else. It just says Bob. But we've got this big rendering on the outside with a badge and some other text and a lot of other things. And essentially what's been enabled in M25 is the ability to create a shadow root. And the shadow root is this entry point into this DOM that you never see as a web developer when you look at the view source. You have to enable shadow DOM inspection inside the developer tools. But yeah, you don't actually see it. And the idea is that, well, you might have these third-party controls or these extra controls for your user interface elements. And all you really want to see in your HTML is the fact that you know that you've got that thing in there. And that's what it's basically doing. It's created via some JavaScript at the moment, so you get a reference to the element that you want to enhance. Say create shadow root, and that's it. You basically can start reprojecting the content from the shadow root onto the actual main DOM itself. It's pretty nebulous at the moment in my kind of understanding, and this, especially the demo, you can't really see much. And I know when we show you the code, hopefully it'll become a lot clearer. But it basically allows you to make components. You've got the template tag in there as well, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, you can start to build these nice components. But the user-facing HTML, is that a way of saying it, is a lot simpler. Yeah.
I think the thing that is really going to be interesting about this is that the ability to be able to build components. Right. So today, if you want to, you can go to jQuery UI, or you can use things like Bootstrap, that kind of stuff, and it gives you a set of components. But you usually have to wrap HTML and HTML to get a bunch of things to happen, and it works, and it's a perfectly good way of doing things. But wouldn't it be great to be able to say calendar control, and it goes and puts the right calendar in, and you can style it all appropriately. You get the things that you want. And that's where I think the shadow DOM is really going to become a really powerful and interesting piece.
Yeah, like I said, it's powerful. You might not start to use it for a little while, but the fact is, it's consistent across Chrome now, and it's there across all of our instances.
Yep.
Not like our version of Chrome that you get from all places that you normally get them, whether it's the store or whether it's from kind of the web or the normal desktop version. They will have Shadow DOM enabled.
Yeah. And this is something that's coming to other browsers as well. This is not just a Chrome feature. These are open web platform features, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and
cool.
That's something as well that's also pretty cool. So that, it's right now, it's just here, but it's coming to other browsers. You'll be able to use this in other places as well. Awesome. All right, so let's get out of here. So we'll close this guy and have a look at the user timings. Now, if you're with desktop browsers, we've been able to go and get user timings for quite some time. And it's pretty powerful to be able to understand how many milliseconds it's taking for your navigations to happen, for your pages to load, so you can really understand where the bottlenecks are. And now in Chrome for Android, in the latest release, we have that. So we can go and see, okay, well, so in this particular instance, our navigation started at, I'm not even going to try and read that number. It looks like we have an undefined for our navigation end. So that may just be a bug in the code.
I think there's actually a few of the standard elements. Basically, I took when I did built the sample.
Yep.
I took everything from the spec, and there are some across different browsers which aren't quite implemented, which is why you get undefined. But there's a whole load like navigation start. I think there's some DNS ones in there as well.
Yeah.
And this is information that you never get outside of DevTools, but you might want to instrument inside your application.
Yeah.
Whether you I've not seen anyone do it just yet, but I would like to see this people starting to pipe this the representation of this into Google Analytics, so that they can kind of start to see that different response times and how fast things are.
Yeah.
How that materially affects their users essentially.
Yeah.
And that's what this enables. It's on desktop.
Yep.
It's now on mobile.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that this is really important on mobile, because mobile performance is completely different in many ways than desktop web performance. Because you're going over a 3G or 4G radio or sometimes even Edge or GPRS, your performance characteristics are going to be significantly different. So to understand how you can make sure that your performance on your mobile website and your mobile web apps is optimized, this is a really good tool for being able to dig into those and see what's going on.
Yep.
All right. So support for the track element, let's go for that one. This one I think is kind of cool, and if you're familiar with the track element allows you to add captioning or text tracks to videos. So if you were watching this video after the fact and you see the numbers of the text that's showing up, it would show up below. So in this case, I'm going to go hit play on this particular video, and we'll scroll down here in a sec, and you can see that below we've got the text is showing up below the video. And we also have the video playing quite nicely as well. You can see the little CC icon there as well. Paul, do you have anything you want to add for this one?
Yeah, actually, this is kind of interesting, this one. This is a demo made by Sam Dutton, one of my colleagues in the UK. And basically, he's really into media, and he's been all over the track element for quite a while now.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about this is there's actually a bug in what we know as Android M20, Chrome for Android M25, which is this version, where if you look at the video, you'll probably see a little couple of black lines across the very bottom of the video. That's actually the text track, apparently, where it's been made a little bit too small. But the interesting thing, so this is it. So what happens is underneath, where you actually see the text, and it says, no, I'm a little bit delayed, but I can see it says on the web was always changing and all this type of stuff. That's actually triggered by the events from the track API. So the track API is firing events when the new caption should come in and all this type of stuff. And then Sam is basically looking at what that DOM element is, reprojecting it onto the page, as the timing changes, basically. So it's a little bit of a hack, but the fact is that you get this information out anyway, so you can go and do whatever you want with the different types of track information. So it's pretty cool. I expect that one they'll probably be fixed at some point soon.
All right. Well, I'm going to switch out the phone and plug in my laptop. Paul, do you want to talk about some of the changes to the Viewport so that I can set up and show some of the dev tools?
Yeah. Damn you. So the Viewport, it's never that texty, right? But there's been some changes essentially with the way that we handle Viewport in the last couple of weeks at least. And the change is the difference between the old Android browser and then the Chrome browser on Android. And basically, there's an attribute when you're actually setting up your Viewport, I can't speak, your Viewport, where you set user scale, like min scale, max scale, the device width, like the width is like the Viewport, whether it matches the device width or it's something else. And then there's one extra tag, which is, I think, target density. And you can basically say target density equals device density DPI or something similar to that. We've detected quite a few sites that actually exist out there with this set. It doesn't do anything anymore. It's been removed. Basically, no other browser supports it anymore because we have better ways of actually detecting the user's, essentially the user's DPI, which you can do via JavaScript and CSS itself in a media match, in a media query. So it's been removed. If you've got it, you can remove it. It's safe to remove it. Don't worry about it so much. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So that's a big one. There's a blog post that we just put up recommending that people stop using that. If you haven't gone and tested your site, you should go and just do a quick run through of your site just to make sure that it is working as you expect it to work. In this new way, because we found a few particular sites where it just doesn't work as expected. So,
did we talk about content security policy?
We didn't talk about content security policy. Go for it.
We got a couple of seconds to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So content security policy is enabled in M25 of Chrome, which means enabled in M25 of Android Chrome as well, and basically. And if you've ever watched any of the Chrome Apps Hangouts that me and Pete do, you'll see us talk about content security policy all the time. So you're probably okay with this, right? But for everyone else who hasn't heard of content security policy, it's a set of directives that you can include in your HTTP headers on the response back that indicate essentially what type of domains that requests can come from the site. It's essentially there to mitigate cross-site scripting. So you can basically say, I don't allow scripts. I only want to allow scripts from my domain. I don't want to allow scripts from like any other site. And I don't want to allow eval. I don't want to allow new function. I don't want to allow any inline script as well, because inline script's an interesting one. If someone can inject a script tag into your page, well, they can cross-site script your page. And the idea behind content security policy is you can actually turn that feature off. So you can say people can't, they might be able to insert a script, but they can't insert like any old piece of JavaScript that they choose to execute themselves.
Yeah.
So you can do those types of things as well.
Yeah.
And that's there, it's available. And if you were to speak to Mike West, one of our other colleagues based in Germany, in Munich. Yes, Munich. He'll be telling you to turn it on now. I think that's really good advice, just generally. He'd also tell you to go HTTPS, which again you should do. But you combine these two pieces of technology together, and we start to get more secure sites. We mitigate a lot of risks by having these things enabled. But it requires browser support, and it's in the browser now.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good point. All right. Well, so I've got the remote debugger set up, so you should be able to see that. I also want to point out if we can put the link to questions. If you have questions as we're going through, we'd love to take your questions. So you can post your questions there on Moderator. As soon as we finish up here on some of the DevTools stuff, we'll be popping over to there. So post your questions to Google Moderator, and I will go and let's have a quick peek at some of the stuff that's available in DevTools. The first one I want to actually have a look at is the Shadow DOM stuff. So I'm actually going to go and we'll reload this page here so we can get the Shadow DOM test loaded. And if I have a look at the elements here, if I can get this guy to load, always love when the demo gods go not so happy on you on fun little demos. Let's see if we can get this going. I had this working earlier today. It did work, trust me. All right, well let me do this. Let me try restarting Chrome.
I think to explain for everyone who's not used DevTools, basically the dev tools that you see inside, like you see inside normal Chrome that you connect to your web page to inspect, we have that available in Android. And the way that you do it is that you have to use the Android SDK to download ADB. We kind of know that's a bit of a problem right at the moment, but you have to use this tool, ADB, which lets you forward requests from your machine to your USB connected Android device. And then once you do that, you can actually then use the dev tools, because dev tools, you gotta remember, this is on Android, it's the same, pretty much the same version of Chrome. So it has the same kind of dev tools experiments, the same type of kit and everything inside dev tools. You connect to that, and then you get that whole ability from the client, which is your main machine, to connect to your mobile phone with the dev tools. And because they're the same and they're served up, the dev tools are actually served up by the phone and not necessarily Chrome itself.
Right.
You get all the latest improvements. So if you're on M18, which was the last version for Android, you would have the M18 dev tools. There's been a lot of improvements in between, including a lot of profiling changes.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you'll see these. You'll basically see these come up now, and you've got the ability to connect, use the dev tools that's on the machine, and get all that goodness out of it, including performance profile, DOM inspection, all that type of magic.
Yeah. So if a reload helped. So if we have a quick peek at the one where we were talking about the shadow DOM, you can see I've got this template ID equals name tag template, and if I expand this out, I've got all of the details that are in there. Now I think in my particular case, so I'm going to bring up the settings so that I can see what's in my particular settings. I've got the show shadow DOM turned on. Let me turn that off and reload this page so that we can see. Oh, it's still there. All right, never mind. So with that, you can go in and be able to dig into the shadow DOM. You can be able to go and see the different elements that are there. You can see all of the other additional settings that are available. So if we have a look at some of the new stuff that's available within the settings, there's now the show shadow DOM so that we can go in and see what's going on there. There's also these two renderings, show paint rectangles and show FPS meter. So if I turn on the show FPS meter, we all of a sudden get the ability to see the number of frames per second that's being rendered on my device. So I can see that right now this is rendering at about 60 frames per second. Not like there's a whole heck of a lot happening, so not a big deal. We can also turn on the paint rectangles. So as we go through and try and change things on this particular page, we can see where things are getting painted. Now, this is not exactly the best example of this because there's not a lot on this particular page, but you get the idea that you can see as things are getting repainted where that painting is truly happening. The ability for source maps is in there, just as you would expect as is on the desktop. As well, we can see show the CPU activity on the ruler. If I pop over to some of the overrides, let me make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. You can override the user agent. So if you want to fake out Chrome for Android and make the website think that it's running something else, maybe you want to see how a website is serving different content for an iOS device versus a Chrome device, you can go in and you can change that. You can also change. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to say you just hit the nail on the head. It's like we've been doing a lot of work with trying to see which sites do what, and there are still sites that try. Basically, they'll specialize for iOS or specialize for Android because they think iOS has got a feature, and then they'll override like a feature that is already implemented in Chrome for Android, essentially. And if you change the user agent, you can kind of test to see whether the iPhone version essentially works better.
Yeah.
Then you will kind of know whether they do that type of thing. It's
yeah.
really nice.
In fact, this is a really good example. One of the things that we found when we were looking at the Viewport settings was that a lot of sites who were using the device density DPI attribute in their Viewport, they would use it only on Chrome or on Android, but they wouldn't send it to iOS devices. So one of the ways that I was able to test and figure out, oh, hang on, what's the best fix for some of these sites, was by going and changing the user agent to iOS and being like, hey, just give us this, it works perfectly. And that was a really easy fix for them. You can also go in and override your geolocation settings, the device orientation. Emulate touch events, well, that one's kind of one of those things that's in there because it's available on the desktop, and you don't really need to emulate them on the mobile device, but it's there anyways. And you can also emulate some of the CSS properties.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I really like DevTools. I'm hoping that we get Addy or someone in at some point to do a mobile specific DevTools session.
Yeah, I think that's a really valuable thing, and we'll try and get them on within the next couple weeks because there's a lot of new stuff available, and I think a lot of really interesting and powerful things available for us as developers. So that's sort of the end of the stuff that I wanted to show really quickly in the DevTools. Paul, was there anything else that you think is worthy of a highlight?
DevTools wise, or
DevTools, or actually anything else, because I think at this point we've covered most of the stuff that we wanted to.
Well, I think there's a lot of like stuff under the hood. This impulse side painting, threaded compositor, it's a big change. You'll basically see you'll see the difference when you scroll through any site because you'll see the content still. So at the same time, it's like we want a lot of feedback about your experiences with the with the developer tools, with the latest version, especially if you're a developer and then you've found something that doesn't work quite as you'd expect.
Yep.
crbug.com/new. I think it's m.crbug.com/new.
Yep.
So yeah, like send us all the reports you want. Also send us feedback on what you want to hear about as well, because we have some ideas, but obviously we want you guys to learn things from what we're talking about, and we're not going to do like a what's new in Android every week because
we don't ship every week. Yeah.
Exactly right. But at the same time, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming, and we're going to have a whole lot of new features to kind of talk to you about.
Well, and that's a really great point. With Chrome for Android, you can run Chrome Beta and Chrome Stable side by side. You can't do that on the desktop. And so if you want to see what's coming, you want to play with some of those things, that's a really great way to see what's coming and to just sort of see what's exciting.
Actually, one thing I did want to talk about is that I think, in this one you can use about flags. So
yes,
flags. You've got the ability now in stable Chrome to be able to toggle all these settings. And one, especially if you're a games developer and you've wanted to kind of do WebGL on mobile, and pretty much Firefox was the only option. You can enable that and test it inside your browser now. It's not available on the general web. It has to be enabled via Chrome flags. But things like WebGL, especially these other technologies, which we want to get out there, but we don't think quite ready just yet. We'd love feedback on all these other features as well if you've got them, or you've got uses for them at least. Chrome flags. Interestingly, all the normal Chrome / URLs will work.
Yep.
So, if you want to go and check what app cache is doing, Chrome / app cache internals.
Yeah.
Those type of things. You get the full access of what you need on the device, and you don't have to enable developer mode. So
that's pretty slick. Cool. Well, why don't we switch over and take some of your questions? I'm going to bring this up, and if you guys have questions that you want to post, please feel free to post those to the moderator. We'll put the link up there, and let me load questions. Maybe it's slow internet day here at Google.
I've got the questions if you want.
Okay, why don't we just switch to the two of us, and you can go for questions, and we can take them from there.
Cool. We've got two questions. The first one is, any plans to make available camera capture via Get User Media and WebRTC in Chrome for Android? Heath?
Sure, absolutely. I want to answer this question a little bit more generally because I think it's a little bit more fun to do that, and it gives you a little bit more excitement about what's coming. The plan is to really get desktop and phone parity. So we want to make sure that the same features that are available for Chrome for Desktop are available. Now, it may take a little while, and some of these things you may see behind flags, but we do plan to get everything as close to feature parity as possible. In fact, that's one you can check out today. If you go into Chrome / flags, you can turn WebGL on in Chrome M25, which you can see these are things that are moving forward. It is behind a flag right now, so that we can make sure that we get it right. We can not have somebody go do something it's like absolutely beautiful but kind of slow and has a bad experience. We want to make sure that we provide that great experience.
I think parity's our thing. We're not saying that we're completely there just yet, but we've come a long way in a relatively short time. So I'm hopeful. The interesting thing, if you want access to the camera, there's always the input type equals file.
Yep.
Accepts camera or accepts image type, and then capture camera and capture camcorder.
Yep.
We'll let you do video as well. So you do have access to them, and they're still in there.
Yeah.
It's not as nice, obviously. It's not as sexy. It's not as inline as you expect, right? Everyone wants that Instagram experience.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, we do have a basic solution in lieu of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, watch the space for all the other features. We want parity.
Awesome.
Second question is about extensions.
Yeah.
Are we bringing extensions anytime soon?
I don't think we have anything to announce at this point. I know it's something that we're certainly interested in. The biggest concern that I have around extensions is really around performance and accessibility on stuff. You know, on a desktop where you can have all sorts of little icons in your next to your address bar, where you can do take a little bit of a performance hit because you're doing some JavaScript processing, or maybe you're going and pulling some additional resources and putting them on a page. That's okay, because you've got a powerful computer. On a phone or tablet, you don't have that much processing power. So I think it's really important that when we do tackle this, we make sure we tackle it right and we don't end up doing anything that's going to cause performance implications for users. Cool.
That's it. I think that's all the questions. There's none on YouTube.
All right.
So yeah, I think we're...
Cool. Well, I want to say thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks, Paul, for joining us from London.
Good, thank you.
We're going to be doing this every Thursday, so we'll be back next Thursday at the same time, and hope to see you then. Thanks, everybody.